all seemed to happen way too fast.
Welcome to the First Frets episode of 2026. The song you're hearing now is Wasted Wonderland from Bob Collum's album Little Rock. Wasted Wonderland also serves as the title of a great compilation of his songs. Bob, a singer-songwriter and guitarist, grew up in Tulsa, Oklahoma, then spent a couple years in Chicago before making a big change. In 2001, he moved to the UK. Bob's music had already been getting airplay in Europe, and not long after moving there, he formed the Welfare Mothers. He also made a lot of friends and connections in England's music community. The list of artists Bob has supported include Dave Alvin, Ron Sexsmith, The Handsome Family, John Wesley Harding, Robbie Fulks, Marshall Crenshaw, Alejandro Escovedo, Amy Rigby, Robert Earle Keen, and Wilko Johnson. He continues to write, record, and perform with his current group, simply referred to as the Bob Collum Band. His music is great. It's UK Americana, but you can hear slices of Western swing from his time in Tulsa and hours spent at Cain's Ballroom. Stay tuned for an interview with Bob Collum.
And if they kept on drinking, she might stop thinking about the ring on her left hand. In a cheap motel in a wasted wonderland. Blue skies and drugstore eyes. Mama's little angel in a cheap disguise.
Welcome to Frets with DJ Faye, the place to hear great music and interviews with fantastic musicians. Stay tuned. Bob Collum, we have been talking about doing this for quite a while now, and here we are. Thanks so much for doing this.
Oh, it's my pleasure, man. It's a real pleasure to be following in the footsteps of the guests that you've had. You've had some amazing quality of guests, and I got to tell you, it's a true honor.
It's been great. Without going into the long history, it started with me just talking to local musicians, and then, I don't know, I was very fortunate that a lot of them had connections to people kind of all over, and they said, hey, you should talk to so-and-so. And we will get to, there's a topic related to that I want to talk to you about later on. So are you currently living in Essex or London, or where exactly?
Yeah, I live, if London was New York, I'd be living in Newark.
Gotcha.
Kind of proximity to London, yeah. I've been here since 2001. Yeah, and I actually had getting my citizenship in February.
Nice.
This may be aired by then, but yes. So yeah,
quarter of a century.
Because, yeah, and it's hard to believe. I was a wee child when I moved here. Actually, no. It's kind of funny. I was thinking about this the other day as my ex-wife, who's my son's mother's British, and we decided to move over here, and we found out we were going to have them because the Bush election had just happened. We thought, America is never going to be this crazy. They're never going to make a mistake like this again.
Right.
We'll just go ride out a few years back in England. Then we'll move back when things settle down. And I'm still here. 25 years later.
And look where we are. Wow.
Yes.
Well, let's travel back in time to when you were living in the States. I know you moved from Tulsa to the UK in the early 2000s, as you just mentioned.
Yeah. I was in Chicago for a little while as well.
Oh, okay.
Before I came here. So
Gotcha.
it was kind of, I followed the path north and then did a hard right.
Gotcha.
Basically. Yeah.
Okay. Well, I love Chicago too. And I love Tulsa.
Great city's great.
But were you originally from Tulsa, or?
Yeah, I was born actually in Claremore, which is a suburb. Well, not a suburb. It's about half an hour drive from Tulsa.
Okay.
But I grew up in Tulsa itself. Yeah, it was my hometown.
Nice. Well, when you were a kid, what music do you remember hearing, like at that young age? What was the first thing you kind of sparked to or remember hearing?
It's interesting. There was a TV show in Tulsa on the channel, on the ABC affiliate, called The John Chick Show that was on at 6 in the morning every Friday. And I was probably about 3 or so. I have these very early memories of requesting to watch that show. And what it was a local kind of TV personality who would get his friends, and they usually would play bluegrass type stuff for half an hour in the morning. And I loved it. And they were doing songs that like my grandmother would sing to me, and like Crawdad Song by the Carter Family. exactly what is hip to have, now, as they were into the Carter family. My granddad was a huge Bob Wills fan. I think my grandmother actually saw Jimmy Rogers at one point when she was a little girl. So I had this was kind of what was going on around me. So when everybody else was listening, to Kiss and Cheap Trick, I was surrounded by, that kind of stuff, which served me well later on. Not that I didn't love, Cheap Trick and stuff, but later on. But when I was a kid, that was the seminal influence. But probably the kind of the eureka moment was in kindergarten. I don't know if when you were in school, they would do this, but like every few weeks, they would say, you can bring a record to class. And so a kid brought in an Elvis 45 with I Want You, I Need You on it. And I heard that and went, stop, wait, man, what is this? What is this? And I was just transfixed. So I had my grandma take me to a local record shop and I bought, I think I bought Can't Help Falling in Love and Hula Baby on the flip side, that single. And I was like, this is me. And then like within a year, he was dead. I was just like, no, I found my thing and it's gone.
Wow.
And then, so it was a real, and then it led to, Buddy Holly, Hank Williams. And then I realized everybody I like is dead.
Oh.
I've got to start liking living people.
Yeah. But in those days, you mentioned, sparking to hearing, guitar music. Was guitar the first instrument you learned? Or?
Well, it was the first instrument I ever owned. I had an uncle who who picked a little bit. He bought me and a cousin like little Sears acoustics when we were maybe 4 or 5 years old. So that was always like in the corner of the room. Usually just used to mime to Elvis records in the mirror, but it was always there. And I remember like when the music bug really started hitting me, I thought, I wonder if I can pick out some kind of melody on it. And however the guitar was tuned, I don't know what it had settled into, but if I hit the E, B, and G strings, it sounded like the beginning of Words of Love by Buddy Holly. And I was like, oh. And then just, I had a very brief career as a trombone player in junior high school. And then I decided I need a guitar and got the like everybody else, I got the Mel Bay book and just started learning E minor.
I think I've talked about this before, but Mel Bay was from here, and he had.
That's right.
I was a teenager when my dad knew him. There was like some connection.
You're kidding me.
Well, my dad was a harmonica.
Oh, man.
My dad was a harmonica player, and he ended up, when I first got really interested as a young teen in playing, I took some local lessons on Saturdays for a little while. But then, one day, I can remember this very clearly. My dad on a weekend took me up to Mel Bay's guitar shop in Kirkwood, Missouri. And he happened to be there that day.
Wow.
And I mean, boy, talk about somebody who made a lot of money off of those instruction books.
He sure did, man. It's here they have the Burt Whedon was the guy that put all the instruction books out. He was like a guitar player you might see on the Lawrence Welk type shows here. But everybody learned from the Burt Whedon Play in a Day book, which was equivalent to our Mel Bay guitar. But it was like magic, wasn't it? If you remember that first E minor chord, and then you did that to a C, and you went, "Oh my God!"
Yeah, the G, transitions. You're like, "Wow!" It's like these aha moments. Like, "Oh, okay."
I bought like a Paul McCartney, Mel Bay Paul McCartney book, and could almost play Junior's Farm. The F was very difficult. I could almost play Junior's Farm, and then that day you realize that the 1-4-5 chord could be done in any key. Was another massive breakthrough.
Yes, yeah.
Just all those. I think that's what we lose as we get older and we get more. I don't want to say better, but as we learn, as we get more technique and stuff, is that sense of, oh my God, I just discovered this,
right? Which
is like vital to music. I think we always have to find ways to have that. I think I just discovered something new, kind of feeling, which we don't discover anything, but it's that great feeling of something that we can do now that we couldn't do before.
Hey, I want to talk about Plug. Plug makes it easy for you to purchase the personal technology you need at 40 to 70% off retail pricing. What can you get from Plug? Certified pre-owned devices including iPhones, Androids, AirPods, Macs, smartwatches, accessories, and more. I originally didn't even want an Apple Watch, but I got one from Plug and I love it. I wear it every day. Your purchase is backed by their unmatched 1-year warranty and 30-day money-back guarantee. One more very cool thing, Plug is dedicated to helping reduce e-waste around the globe. To date, Plug has helped save over 1 million devices from reaching landfills, and they're looking to double that number by 2025. Link to Plug Tech from the show notes, and check out all the great deals and savings on certified pre-owned devices. Plug Electronics. Check it out. So junior high, high school, teen years, in that period of time, what were some of your favorite bands at that point?
Well, it was really weird because my mom was still around, but she'd stopped listening to music. You know, I'd go to visit her every once in a while, and I'd see her. Remember those old wire record racks that everybody had that sat on top of the table or something? And I just noticed, and boy, those are some pretty cool looking. What are those? And I found Introducing the Beatles on the VJ album.
Yeah.
And Over, Under, Sideways, Down. That Yardbirds album. Oh. And like Waylon Jennings, the Taker album. So I was like, if you're not having these, can I borrow these? And it was like, this is incredible. And
like an epiphany with the Yardbirds.
Well, yeah, that whole kind of the British invasion stuff was like, again, it was like another door open. A few years later, then it happened, but it was just like bam, right there. It was it's the next step, not literally and figuratively. It was the next step into like, okay, there's some really great sounds happening here, and these guitars are very cool sounding. And I remember the very first day I heard the word Rickenbacker, a cousin of mine said, "Oh, he's playing a Rickenbacker," and I thought, I'm going to remember that.
Yeah.
And but yeah, it was like it was like a whole new world. And the great thing about all that stuff, I don't think people who are who like our generation is probably the last one to go, oh yeah, it's like you heard like the Beatles, but you still heard Buck Owens, in the Beatles. You heard it referenced that stuff that you really liked. So it was like, it was comfortable in that way.
Yeah, there were so many, like, of course, the Beatles, they played quite a bit of country covers, and I know George Harrison loved, Chet Atkins and all those guys. And then, of course, the Stones, like Beggar's Banquet is very, very country. Yeah, it's just, I could go on. And, of course, my beloved Kinks, they really got into that whole country thing. They loved it.
That's what's great about living in here is that it's like you're living in Kinks songs.
Yeah.
It's incredible how things that you were sounded so exotic when you were listening to something else or Face to Face or Muswell Hillbillies when you were a kid. All these extremely exotic things now are just part of everyday life.
Yeah.
And they're such an important writer, and the whole band, because come on, the whole band was brilliant. But discovering Ray Davies, and I can have this vivid memory of Christmas in 1985, finding something else in a cut-up and like a Sam Goody's or a shop, and taking it home and listening to it and going, this is incredible stuff. What is this? This is mysterious and absolutely mesmerizing. And it had a real good heart to it. It was emotional stuff.
Yep. So
that to me, when I hear the Kinks, I think Christmas music, because that Christmas of '85 was basically spent listening to the Kinks.
It's great. Well, how old were you when you first joined a band, or maybe you formed your own group?
I think I did kind of, I had a friend that played drums in high school, and we used to go to his house and just play, the two of us, because I had seen or I'd owned that John Goldrose and Buddy Holly book, and he talked about him and Jerry Allison would just get together and the two of them would play. So we would just get together and play. And I think we talked a friend into learning bass so we could be in a talent show. And it was just kind of doing that in high school, nothing serious. It was after I got out of school, and by that time I had discovered a lot of other stuff. I just around the same time as the Beatles, I got into Dylan and this kind of the more singer-songwriting type thing, which led to discovering Elvis Costello. And I thought, okay. And what discovering people like Elvis and Dylan and stuff is, you thought, okay, you don't actually have to have a band to put a song across. You can be a guy with a guitar and put a song across and not be like a folk singer, but just And then I saw Elvis at Cain's Ballroom in Tulsa in '87 when he was doing the Confederates tour. And part of that show was acoustic, just him. And it blew me away about how strong an artist can be just with a guitar, putting the song across to an audience. And so after school, I thought, I'm going to do that. So I spent a couple of years opening for every band I could find that would have me open up for them, and learned a lot about how not to do it. And it was only when I was about 20, I formed a band in Tulsa called the Legendary Hitchhikers, which was, of course, taken from an Elvis song,
Yeah.
But that I started getting into the idea of doing the band thing, and I really enjoyed that. We were together for about 2 or 3 years, had some success. I got to meet some people like Phil Seymour, who played with Dwight Twilley, was a friend of the band's, and it was a good time, a good learning. I was with musicians who are a few years older, very nurturing kind of guys. So I learned a lot about how to make records with. But when that band broke up, like most young bands do, I went back to the singer-songwriter thing. But it was that whole process of I was always really conscious about how it was about the song. It was always about the song and how do you put a song across to people, and that was a consistent through all that stuff.
Wow, I was flashing back when you were talking about for one, finding out how much you loved Elvis Costello, but I saw him. I made a road trip to Cain's. It was my first time going. I had a friend who was living in Tulsa. Yeah. And I made the road trip down there to see him. I'm trying to remember what year. It's been quite a while now. But anyway, Jim Lauderdale was in his band. It was such a, what a cool venue right off the bat. The home of Bob Wills and the Texas Playboys.
Well, when you're a kid in Tulsa playing music, that's kind of like, if you can do that, you're happy. It was like the first time you play Cain's, you go, I don't know how much more I need to do than this. I've actually played on this stage, and it's really great, and it is a great venue, and I'm so glad it's stronger than ever now.
Yeah, I need to get back down there. I do get the, emails or whatever, just talking about who's coming there. Or I guess, social posts are always talking about who's coming up at Cain's.
Well, Tulsa's an interesting place to grow up musically. It was back. Now I think it's a lot more accommodating all around. But I grew up in that bit of time that was post J.J. Cale and Leon Russell. So there was a real, almost like vacuum after that, where a lot of players were either burned out or had moved away, and a lot of the younger people didn't want to kind of look back and acknowledge the history, But I was always interested in Leon Russell and J.J. Cale, and I was interested in the church studios, and wow, Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers recorded here. Oh my gosh, George Harrison hung out here. So it was very difficult then to kind of like find you appreciated the past, but it was very difficult to find anything remain from that past around. And that's what's really great about, I think, nowadays is that Tulsa's really, really embraced that stuff. It's embraced that period of the music and its history. I read the great Leon Russell book that came out a couple years ago, and while he was renovating his mansion, he lived in a house about a quarter of a mile from where I grew up.
Oh, wow.
So I had Leon Russell was a 10-minute walk from where I grew up.
That's
and
cool.
I had no idea.
I love those pictures of him from back in the early studio days. His hair was a lot shorter. He looked more, I don't want to say clean cut, but he was just a very different look than when he became. And I also loved his look when he had, hair past his shoulders.
He's great. It was really weird. I was in Nashville in the mid-'90s. I was eating in a restaurant on Music Row. There was it was really weird. It was like a Indian restaurant that was, you paid for what you got. They weighed your plate. Very basic tables. Right. Very basic bench tables across the room. So I sit down. This guy walks in and went, holy moly. I said, that can't be. And in a white suit, beard, cane, sunglasses, hat, cowboy hat. He came down, got his food and sat down next to me, took his sunglasses off. I'm like, oh my God, that's Leon Russell. Wow, I didn't know what to say.
Great. That's great.
I don't know what to say to Leon Russell at this point. It was incredible. And those eyes, man, when he took those sunglasses off, it was like, oh my God, it's Leon.
There was something in the wind and rain, a feeling coming back again. I was waiting for your voice to speak and save me from this lonesome dream. But was I blue enough for you? Blue enough for you? Blue enough for you? Blue enough for you? I followed you down every road and helped you with your heavy load. But for every bridge we've ever burned, there's got to be a lesson learned. That was I
Hey, Dave, how long have you been a Euclid Records customer?
Believe it or not, about 30 years.
Oh, boy.
Yeah, I used to go there in the late 90s.
That's amazing. Well, you know what? 2026 is our 45th anniversary in St. Louis, and our New Orleans store is turning 15.
The NOLA store is cool, but the St. Louis store has 2 floors of used and new vinyl and CDs.
And every genre you can think of. You can shop in the store 7 days a week or on the website 24/7. We have our own shipping department, so anything you buy from us is lovingly mailed out by us.
When I buy from the website, I use the free local pickup option.
Yes, and we've also done some special orders for you. We do whatever it takes to get music in your hands. One thing, though, that you haven't done with us is sell your collection. We're always buying vinyl and CDs and cassettes for cash or trade. We even travel to someone who has over 1,000 titles in their collection.
So how does one partake in the Euclid Records experience?
Well, our St. Louis store is at 19 North Court Avenue in Webster Groves. You can check out our website, euclidrecords.com, every day to see the latest new and used arrivals, plus events. We share that on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook as well. And remember, we ship worldwide, so no matter where a Frets listener is, there's Euclid Records.
Well, fast forward a little to when you did make the decision to move to the UK.
Yeah.
Like how long, I mean, I know you probably had to get settled and everything, but how long was it before you formed the Welfare Mothers?
Well, it was pretty quick. It was interesting. I knew when I moved here that my previous stuff had always done well in Europe. You know, Italy was a really strong country back in the good old days of people buying stuff, you know, before the internet. Italy was great. Italy, Spain. In the UK, I was getting airplay on Radio 2. The Bob Harris, who's the big kind of Americana DJ over here, the guy that was the host of Old Grey Whistle Test, was playing stuff.
Yeah.
And at that time, there was a really great, strong live music scene here. So I got here, did a couple of solo shows. I'd played here before solo, but I decided, we'd get a band together. And it wasn't very difficult. It was within a few months I was able to find like-minded musicians. And one of the great things about America, you know, it's very difficult at kind of these troubled times to understand this, but the culture of America, the music, film, books, all that stuff, still resonates strongly with people all over the world. And I didn't have to cast my net far to find guys who knew who Lucinda Williams were, who understood kind of that musical dialogue. So I found a drummer, Paul Corey, who actually has just left the band after 25 years. He's officially got his gold watch now, and we've, you know, it was very simple to put a band together. We were very easy compared to like I'd been experiencing in America.
And then was Dan Wilkinson on bass?
Yeah, Dan was our first bass player. Fantastic guy, lovely guy. Just saw him very recently. Came to one of the gigs. I haven't seen him in a while. He's still the same. He's one of those brilliantly, consistently cool guys. He brought like this really great kind of youthful energy because he was the youngest member. We were originally a trio, and he was. It was really good. He was exactly what we needed at the time. Brilliant guy.
Well, I think you did sort of answer a question that I had for you. I was going to say, you know, your band was playing a lot of gigs and then began to build up a following around the UK and also outside of England, but it sounds like it was a little bit, I mean, you were already, before you moved over there, like you guys were getting recognition.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was. I think the people that are into, I hate the whole the tags and stuff, but kind of that Americana roots kind of scene were very keen. They would pick up the magazines like No Depression and see, you know, so getting mentioned in that stuff automatically got pricked people's ears up. And so when I moved here, it wasn't like I was an unknown quantity. It was very nice.
That's great.
And a lot of it, I have to thank, you know, Missouri's own, you know, Lou Whitney and the boys, the Skeleton guys, because being associated with them was this huge credibility thing. It was this big boost, you know, of Because I know Lou, I don't know if Lou knew, and I've talked to Donnie about this. I don't know if they understood exactly. People know who they are, you know.
Right. It's so crazy. I mean, I would see them in the early days, like a lot of people. I mean, they were, they're loyal followers. We would never miss a chance. Like if they were playing up here in St. Louis at a club, I mean, we were there. And then, it was just funny. Like with Donnie, I was like, I wish people knew. How do people not know this guy? Like one of the greatest, just most talented guitar players I've ever heard. And he did it with such ease, and they had such a great sense of humor. And of course, Lou was hilarious. Oh.
Do you know what I learned from those guys? Besides, I learned a lot from them. But is if you're not having fun on stage, something's wrong.
Yeah.
Audiences want to see people enjoying themselves on stage. At heart, they want to see that you're having a good time. And those guys were the kings of that. And Donnie Thompson should be. I've seen a lot of guitar players. I've seen a lot of guitar players. Nobody's blown me away consistently like Donnie Thompson has. I think he is the most skilled. And by skilled, I don't mean technically. I mean he knows exactly what to play, where to play it.
Yeah.
Most tasteful guy.
Yes, I was very fortunate. It's funny because like I said, I used to see them many, many years ago. And, occasionally when they were on break, I'd maybe have a short chat with, Lou or Donnie. But I mean, that was years ago. And then this past fall, when Donnie played down in the Ozarks, where my friend Rick has his annual fall weekend festival, it was so cool. I hung out quite a bit with Donnie. I got to talk to him quite a bit. And
is that Rick Wood?
Rick Wood, yeah.
Yeah, good guy.
So he is a very good guy.
Donnie also is an amazing songwriter. I mean, he writes some great songs. I mean, that the Waiting album that they did.
Oh, yes.
The songs are incredible. He does some really great. And then the follow-up that was on High Tone. There's some great writing on that.
Yeah, and on Waiting, they have their ode to St. Louis with the song "Show Me the Way to St. Louis."
Absolutely. Which I love through them. That's how I found the Easy Beats version, the original. I prefer the Skeletons, to be honest. I think they had actually been to St. Louis.
Yes.
Which I got to say, St. Louis was a big music town for me. The stepping thing, playing in St. Louis was like a whole other level. When I started going out and playing down on the Landing or in the Loop, or it was like this. The first, Memphis and St. Louis were the first quote unquote big cities. Wow. And it's like, okay, I'm getting in the bigger leagues now. I'm having pizza at Cicero's. This is pretty good.
Yeah, Cicero's. I worked right above it for a while at an ad agency, and it was so tempting to during the day just like slide down the back steps and go to Cicero's.
And the St. Louis music scene as well was really brilliant. I mean, I could go there any day of the week, routing and find a gig in St. Louis because there were just so many places to play.
Yes, a lot of good venues, some sadly gone, but a lot of great bands came out of here too. And we could talk about, Donnie and Lou and the Morels and the Skeletons all day. But the one final thing I'll say about that, I guess we were talking about how do people not know? I mean, or do they know that, just band out of Springfield, Missouri, do they realize? But yeah, in doing, this podcast, so many people I've talked to all over the place, all over they know him all right. Eric Amble talks about, his days.
That's where I first met him. That's where I first met Eric, was at Lou's, the second studio he had, and he was producing the first Blue Mountain record.
Oh, yeah. And I used to go see, there's another band, like Blue Mountain. I would see them in small clubs around here. Anyway, like I said, we could go on and on and on and on and on.
Do you know the story about London's Calling album cover?
The London Calling by The Clash?
Yeah, and Lou and Lloyd.
I guess I do not know that.
Okay, because they were with Forbert, right?
Yeah, Steve Forbert.
And this is what Lou told me. So they were touring with Steve Forbert, who was on Columbia. Well, he was on, I think, an offshoot of Columbia. And they were in New York and had the night off. So the band got passes to go see The Clash at, I can't remember which venue it was. And Lou and Donnie were watching from the side of the stage. And Lou said they were watching. And he said, I think that guy's going to break that bass. And as they're watching, the photographer, I can't remember who it was. It wasn't Roberta Blakely. I can't remember who it might have been. Pushed through Lou and Lloyd and got to the front to take the picture of Paul Simon crashing his bass down.
Wow. They were in that moment. I did not know that story, and I love that story.
And they're also in them. They're in DOA at Cain's Ballroom when the Sex Pistols is there. You can see Lou and Jim Wonderly.
Wow.
Standing outside they're the Zeligs of rock and roll.
That's very cool.
I mean, It's incredible.
Well, Donnie's been on twice. I've had done 2 episodes with Donnie, and I think I'm just right now as we're talking. I think someday I'm going to do an entire episode that's just all about everything we know about about
That
Lou
would be
Whitney,
amazing.
Donnie Thompson, Bobby Lloyd. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
I never would hurt you, but even if I did, you never would tell me. Oh, we are finished as of a long time ago.
You know, when you hear Hello Susie by The Move, and it's like, oh man, that's just the best. And so, like, Rittenhouse did half of the Shazam album, including Cherry Blossom Clinic Revisited, note for note. And we did it great. We did it really great. And I think that there's people that know those records simply because we played them.
My talk with the one and only Peter Holsapple is available on Frets.
Love is the answer to the question. But thanks for the suggestion. I know I don't get it all. Yeah, I know I don't.
Hey, this is Bob Collum, and you are demonstrating you are a very tasteful and discernible listener because you're listening to Frets with DJ Faye.
Well, you released the first Welfare Mothers album, The Boy Most Likely To, in 2004?
Yeah, about around then, yeah.
Well, how do you feel the sound of that album? Do you think it differed from your previous recordings?
It did. I mean, I think the stuff I did back in Tulsa, the records I cut there with Lou and the guys, was definitely, it was a different feel. It was because they, as players, they knew how to do any style and could, they would hear you play it once, and then they just had an arrangement in their heads. So they did the heavy lifting to a certain extent. With forming my own band, recording, there was a lot more of like needing to work the songs up, trying different things, because I was very lucky to play with those guys who could come up with anything on the spot. So it was more of a trial and process to get to the arrangements and the recording. I got to say, we were extremely lucky to discover. I mean, one of the great things about you find out when you start doing this music thing, it blows your mind at first is like, boy, I really like that person. I wonder if I'd do anything to what they're in the phone book. I can call them. Like I had always admired Pat Collier, the producer, because he had a great track record of working with songwriters like Robin Hitchcock and the Soft Boys and The Men They Couldn't Hang There. All these records that he had worked on that I really admired. And when it came time to think, okay, we got enough songs to record now, who do we do this with? I was thinking, I wonder if Pat Collier's, can I find him? And I found his number and got it on the phone with him. And he was like, yeah, absolutely. Let's do this. So we had Pat there, who became kind of like the next font of knowledge and learning to work with, because he was very old fashioned. He'd worked at Decca Records when he was younger. As a matter of fact, when he passed away, unfortunately, a year and a half ago, and it has went to his memorial at the 100 Club in London. And his wife had put pictures on the wall from his career. And there was a picture with Pat, probably 20 years old, with Bing Crosby, who was cutting a session at Decca in London, and Pat engineered the session for Bing Crosby. So this was a guy who was very old-fashioned, very much like Lou and those guys, and he knew how to make rock and roll records. So I was very lucky. We got into that. He cut out extraneous stuff, and he was very much guitar-based kind of rock and roll stuff. So that the Boy the Most Likely to get back to your question there is, I think it's a more streamlined kind of almost power pop trio kind of approach to it, which we went back we did the greatest hits a couple of years ago, and I went back and with Pat and remixed a lot of that stuff. And it was really interesting to hear how, like, oh my God, we played that 3 times faster than we would ever play it now. That bridge should never be in that song. I don't know what I was thinking,
Right.
It's crazy because on the way to the recording, to the first day, my car broke down. So we had to miss we had 2 days to lay down basic tracks. We had to do all the basic tracks in one day. And I think it benefited from that because we went in like the Beatles with Please Please Me and just banged it out.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, you guys played around the UK, but also some festivals like the Borderline Festival in Dublin, the Cambridge Folk Festival, and I think I'm getting this right too. You did go back to the States and play some. Did you play South by Southwest?
I played South by Southwest in the 90s.
Oh, okay. So that was kind of...
that was back with that was a great experience. I made lifelong friends there, and that was the beauty of what South by Southwest was. It was meeting Peter Hawes-Apples and John Wesley Hardings and Peter Case and these people that you still know today, and you just met them at South. I mean, one of the greatest thrills of my life was meeting Bob Newirth at South by Southwest.
Oh, wow.
He's like, give me your phone number, and one day I get home from work, blink on the old answering machine. It was, hey, it's Bob Newirth, just checking in with you. You're just like, wow, that kind of thing. And that was the beauty of South by Southwest. I really missed that. But I haven't been back to the States to play, actually, since I moved here. Definitely not going to definitely be a while before I come back to play. But
I don't blame you. Sorry.
But it's interesting. It's interesting because I know a lot of people think like, you play Cambridge Folk Festival, that must be the biggest thrill, blah, blah. Those gigs generally aren't your most fun gigs.
Really?
The best gigs are the ones where you hit that kind of like that cruising altitude feeling where it's like, okay, this is comfortable, it feels good, I'm enjoying this. And it doesn't happen, consistently. It's just those moments you never know where they're going to come. And unfortunately, it's like usually there's stuff involved, like a big gig, because you go and it's like, stage time, this, blah, blah, blah. You can't, this has to be set up.
I can see that.
Line checks. You don't actually get a sound check. It's just a quick line check. You're using an amplifier that you have no idea what it's going to be like. And then they go right out of your head as well. You don't remember much. You savor the moments. And I'm sure the Beatles loved Shea Stadium. I'm sure they enjoyed that. But I've not had the same big gig experience.
Well, you recruited BJ Cole for Pedal Steel on at least one album, maybe a couple?
Yeah, BJ, yes, he's played on, we've done gigs with BJ, and he's played on records. And again, he's another one of these absolute, he's a master at what he does, and you just have to ask him to play with you. And very lucky. It was funny because I supported a band that he does with Martin Belmont, and on the way to the gig, I was listening to I don't know if you're familiar with Peter Blegvad, but he's one of the greatest songwriters in the world. Peter Blegvad is amazing. And he has a song called Gold, which is one of the most beautiful songs you're going to hear. And there's this haunting steel guitar on it. And I was pulling into the gig, listening to this album, King Strut, that Peter Blegvad put out, with the beautiful steel guitar on this song. I pull in, I got to see who's playing this steel guitar on this. This is incredible. It's BJ Cole. Who is unloading his steel guitar out of the trunk of his car.
Wow.
And I go, BJ, I just got to tell you, and he pulls out, he has this bag in there, he pulls out his crib sheet for that song that he had used. He keeps all this stuff with him. So he had the sheet with his notations for that song on it. It was just amazing. Again, what I really like about players like BJ and those guys is they got the fundamentals. He can play all the Lloyd Green stuff. He can play all the Together Again, the Tom Brumley stuff, but he can also make up the weirdest stuff as well. He thinks like a total musician. He's a genius. Extremely nice guy. And then you like me talking to him, and you go, oh yeah, that's interesting because this reminds me when I cut Tiny Dancer. You're going, wait a second, back up.
Wow.
Or yes, the Walker Brothers. I don't like.
I did see that he played. I mean, his resume is like he played with Humble Pie, he played with Procol Harum, T-Rex. I did see that he played with the Walker Brothers. Wow.
He's on No Regret. Their great version, No Regrets, has got BJ playing still on it.
Man,
I mean, if playing on people's records, paid dividends like royalties, BJ would be living in Graceland or something. He's on everything.
Rise and shine, now it's time to find out what you're thinking. Well, I don't care, it's ancient history. It's all bad news when you come unglued every time you change the channel. Well, I don't care, it's all the same to me. Won't you slow down, Virginia? Can't you break at your own speed? Now you're gone, and I'm still
Well, there's humor in a lot of your songs, I think. And as far as the sound, you can hear occasional Western swing. So I guess I'm guessing that's because of your days in Tulsa.
Yeah, there's that. To me, that feel of like a Western swing is. I'm not trying to ape it, like dressing up in the clothes, and and some bands can do that really well. But I guess again, that's like the Lou Whitney in me thing. I just want to wear who I am and come out and do stuff. And but that's always in there. And the humorous aspect of it, I think, you look at the great guys like Richard Thompson, and who's extremely funny. He's extremely funny.
I've seen him a few
live.
times. Yeah.
You look at John Prine's the master, isn't it? But they're not silly. They're not like Ray Stevens or something.
They tell great stories,
and like everything is kind of like a combination of sadness and humor and the gamut. So I think you can't just be morose all the time. And I think when you're very young, writing songs and stuff, you think it's about being morose because you want people to understand your pain, not realizing that people don't actually want your pain. They don't want it. But then you kind of realize that you need to balance everything out. And sometimes it's just, it's more fun to play a song that's got some levity to it. Even Leonard Cohen's hilarious. You know what I mean? Like Leonard Cohen could be very funny in his songs.
Yes.
And Dylan, sometimes his stuff's screamingly funny. Sometimes Neil Young. These guys aren't like these, and you gotta have that aspect in your writing.
So glad that years ago I saw Leonard Cohen here at the Fox in St. Louis, and
brilliant!
What a memorable! It was. It's like a religious experience seeing Leonard Cohen.
We were listening. My girlfriend and I were listening to John Cale do "Hallelujah," that great version that he did, and we were talking about Leonard Cohen. It's like there's actually some lines in that song that are quite funny, but when you hear the covers or people like over emoting it and putting all this soul into it, they're kind of missing some of the wry bits that are actually
a lot of dark humor
really good.
In that.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, there's a pretty impressive list of bands and artists you've worked with or supported too, like Dave Alvin and the Handsome Family, I think. Yeah.
It was really funny because when I played with the Handsome Family, my son was only a few months old, and they were backstage with him, watching him while I played. It was
I saw them. We mentioned, as I often do, Rick Wood. I saw the Handsome Family at a Woodhouse concert a long time ago. I just have always loved those guys, and it was really cool when I was at the first season of True Detective, like opened up with like the opening titles had a really cool Handsome Family song. What an interesting couple. They're
very
so cool.
Good people.
They
very
are
good people.
Yeah, I have I have an autographed book or a couple of hers that her little artwork books that she put out. The night that I saw them at Rick's, she signed a couple books for me.
You know what's really interesting about all when you start to meet people and stuff, the good ones are generally really nice people.
Yes, I would say so.
It's amazing. And I think it goes to the fact that they're secure people. They don't have, they're not in a contest with anybody, and the good ones are really nice.
Yeah.
And I've of all the people, I've met almost all my heroes except like Dylan. I haven't met Bob Dylan or Neil Young, but they're good people. You meet them and they're nice.
Yeah, they're two of my heroes, and I obviously never met either of them. But yeah, and I've seen them both on several occasions, but at least twice I was just right up there, like at the foot of the stage. Like I'm like, you hate to like think of it as worship, but I'm like, there is Bob Dylan, like 15 feet in front of me. And then Neil Young, I've seen quite a few times too. And then there was one in particular show that I managed to get way up, like right by the stage. And they're big heroes of mine.
Do you know what? Dylan, to me, it's hard to describe to somebody how. I mean, he's part of the elements of life. He's like fire, water. He is just this all-encompassing kind of ideal of what creativity is to me. He lives in his own kind of time and his own rhythm of life, and he lives outside of all the things going on around us. And it's not because he's an aloof guy. I think he's just one of those really rare people that are for the ages. And to see him in concert, I saw him last year. I've seen him more than anybody I've seen, And when you see him, it is this experience of like you're seeing history right in front of you. This is a person. This is an important person you're going to see. And I love that about him. You know, there's only a few people that I feel that way. McCartney is another guy, that same kind of thing. And when those guys are gone, it's going to be really sad.
Yes,
I hate to think about the days.
Yep.
And you know, I got to tell you this: the only person I ever thought maybe not was a friend of mine was playing with Lou Reed the last tour he did over here. I was playing guitar with him. He gave me a pass. I was with a friend of mine, and we were started going back towards it. It was really weird because Eric Anderson, the songwriter, was with us. He'd saddled up with us because he's a friend of Lou. We were on the way backstage to meet Lou, and I looked at my friend, I said, do you think we should do this? Do you think Lou Reed is going to actually, we might get yelled at by Lou, which is cool, but do we really want that? And we thought, nah. So we just left, better just play it safe. I mean, he might have been lovely. I'm sure but my friend that played with him said he was great. He had no issue. He said he was absolutely brilliant. But I thought, I don't want to risk it.
Are you a coffee drinker? Peter Cohen, also known as String Bean Pete, offers the finest beans from around the world. Pete roasts in small batches in non-computerized, old-school ways to music, under a disco ball. You heard that right. Pete also plays a mean bass guitar. And he owns and operates String Bean Coffee. He offers many fine roasts and blends, including a decaf option, and now also String Bean Half Calf. Learn more about Pete's story and where to get his great coffee at stringbeancoffee.com. Well, there are a lot of people I mention frequently on this podcast, just people I love. And one of those that does come up a lot, or has come up a lot, is Brinsley Schwarz. I think anyone who listens to this podcast with any regularity by now knows just how influential Brinsley and his band were in my world. So I would like to share with the listeners how it came to be that I was able to talk with Brinsley Schwarz back in 2024. Because I don't know that too many people know this. But yeah, I think it was in April of 2024. I got a message from someone I did not know who told me he was an expat from Oklahoma, living in the UK, said he really liked the podcast and that he had made some records with the Skeletons, another band I mention frequently. That person also shared with me that he was friends and collaborators with Martin Belmont and Brinsley Schwarz. And would you be interested in either of them being guests on the show? And listeners, if you haven't already figured out who sent me that message, that was none other than my guest today, Bob Collum.
I am guilty.
You're guilty. But I'm forever...
Put your helmet on. Put your helmet on, because I'm going to drop some names.
I'm forever in your debt. Believe me, I can be a shameless name dropper, but I soak that kind of stuff up because I'm starstruck and because there's just so many people, especially in the music world, that I love. And anytime there's any connection.
Dave, you know what? You got to, if you like something, let the person know. I mean, that is, I think you have a duty to let somebody know that you appreciate what they do. There's no, and nobody's going to think you're weird or anything. They're going to, I think, in their own way, they'll accept that.
Right.
It's interesting about Brinsley, right? Here's what Americans is, we don't understand this. That we have no concept of live music beyond how it was in this country pre-Brinsley's. And actually, Bees Make Honey and Brinsley's, they were not Bees Make Honey, Eggs Over Easy.
Eggs Over Easy, yeah.
There was no pub rock scene. There was no bar band scene in the UK. It was concerts, or you would hire halls and put on your own concerts. But there were we're going to go down to the local pub and see a band play. Where in America, bar bands have that's just been the thing, hasn't it? The bars have live music, clubs have live music. It didn't exist over here until the American expats, the guys from Eggs Over Easy, did the Tally-Ho in Kensington, and got the owner to let them play on Sundays. And then the Brinsleys were the next band to do that. That was in the early 70s, that was a whole new concept. And it was like this massive, and this is why I think the pub rock thing leads to the punk. It was this, oh my God, we can do this ourselves. And they were, I love the Brinsleys records, but it was their attitude and the way they went about forging their path ahead is very important and influential. And everybody says that they were never as good on record as they were live. And the few live recordings are pretty amazing. Yeah, I mean, the Silver Pistol album, I think, is an incredible bit of work.
I think so. I bought when the Cherry Red collection came out. I got that, and there's a lot. I mean, I love just hearing like all those. It's a good mix of like kind of obscure live performances, but it also has like all the original albums that they released. It's such great stuff.
They're great, and they were doing their song selection as well. Was thinking about. They weren't doing particularly hits. I mean, they did that great version of Please Don't Ever Change by the Crickets. I love that to pieces, man. And again, it's a band having fun. It's that spirit of like the Beatles at Hamburg.
Yes. That's a good
that
comparison.
Kind of having fun that leads up to be like Lou and the Boys and all of that in RBQ. And then Replacements at their best. It was that idea of on stage, the Faces, all those bands on stage having fun.
Well, I was not only obviously very appreciative that you reached out to me and said, hey, it was like, wow, somebody's, listening. Well, anytime I find out that somebody's listening anywhere, but, I do get a lot of listeners across the pond and elsewhere around the world, which is kind of amazing to me. But yeah, then I started, after that first conversation we had, which was just kind of over text or whatever, started checking out your music, which I loved. And I started realizing, of course, there were even more people that you were, associated with that I either knew or I had talked to. One of those being Peter Holsapple, who Peter played keyboards and accordion on your album, right? On Wasted Wonderland?
He does. Yeah, he's on. That's the Wasted Wonderland's like a compilation.
Well, it's compilation,
of the stuff I recorded. But he's for about the last 10 years, Peter's been adding stuff to records. We covered a different drum, and Peter played a great guitar on that as well. Well, he's just one of those dudes. So Pete, there's two people I know that were Facebook before there was Facebook. Peter and Wesley John Wesley Harding, were the people that back in the old days that you knew that were connectors between various groups of people. They were the common link. And Peter is one of the most creative songwriters. And it's hard to say that he's underrated because we know he's great, but he is very underrated as a songwriter. His process, I think, is absolutely brilliant. He's very open to the, he's like, you listen to Peter's songs and you go, there's a lot of crafts of taking like his raw idea and then how he forms the song around that. I find very fascinating. And he's got amazing taste.
He does.
I mean, if you follow Peter and I would encourage everybody to follow Peter on social media, but he posts the most amazing tracks. And he's a music guy. I think Peter is music.
Yeah.
He is music.
Yeah. I love talking with him. It was just so great to get to talk with him. And and then it was so cool that not long after you and I met each other through, just messaging and talking, getting to know each other that way. I had Peter on for a second episode. He had already been on.
Yeah.
And then during that second episode, at one point, he was like, who you should talk to? Bob Collum. He's great. And I was like, oh my God. I think I said to him, like, oh, well, we've been, kind of got to know each other sort of recently. So, yeah,
Peter and I have written.
You got an endorsement from Peter Holsapple, and I thought, that's great.
Do you know what? When I was like 15 and buying Like This when it came out.
Oh, yes.
If you had told me, there's no way I would have believed,
Yeah, I have a signed copy of that, which I'm very proud to have here.
I would say any listeners that have not listened to Peter the DBs, you need to, right now, pause this podcast and buy, if you can. I would recommend buying, but if you must stream, listen to the DBs, especially the Like This album. I find the Sound of Music album is a masterclass in how to write unclassifiably great American music. It's a stunning album. Yeah. It's a stunning album. And this is what's interesting because I always feel like I get tagged with Americana just because that's kind of the easiest way to say what I play. But what I play is I feel the roots of it are in things like Sound of Music by the DBs. I think it's in King of America, the Elvis Costello album. I think it's in things like the Basement Tapes, the Dylan stuff. And it's funny, okay, Peter and I, a few years ago, we're trying to describe, because he finds himself, I don't feel like I could speak for him. We were talking about what do we describe what we do. And I think the best description of what we do is white album music, because everything like a guy like me, I think a guy like Peter, and so many of us, everything we do can be traced back in some way to the white album. There's a representation of the music on that in some way, which is that great collection of just everything hodgepodge onto a double album. And that's where I would say, if I had to describe my music, I would say, the Beatles' white album music.
I love it. Bob Collum, we finally made this happen. It was so great to be able to talk with you. The first episode of 2026.
Oh my God, 2026. Wow. They always tell me, the last label guys say, you never talk about your music. And, I think everybody should listen to it. Go out right now and download everything I've ever done. Please do that. It's all absolutely brilliant. And that's not, that's difficult to okay. I find it very hard to talk up my own stuff. It's very difficult because I love music and what I love. I'd rather talk about what I love, But get that Wasted Wonderland album. That's got the best stuff I've ever done. That's all you need. Go out and get that.
That's right. Well, I really appreciate this being the first Frets episode of 2026 and more on the way. And can't thank you enough for doing this. And again, for introducing me to Brinsley Schwartz.
Oh, man. My pleasure, Guy. All right. You love to everybody in America. Hello, St. Louis. Send me an Emo's pizza.
Love it.
Stand up and get back to it. You had a chance, I guess we blew it. Too much is the answer. The question's what went wrong. A long pause, short attention.
You can find more info about Bob at bobcolummusic.com. And you can find his music at Bandcamp. Links to both are in today's show notes. Hope you're enjoying Frets with DJ Faye, and I also hope you'll share the show with friends, subscribe for free, and as always, stay tuned.